Imagine waking up and not knowing if it's day or night. Imagine being surrounded by rock on every side half a mile underground, with no way out, no guarantee anyone is even looking for you, and no idea if you will ever see sunlight again. Now imagine living like that for 69 days. In August 2010, 33 miners in northern Chile experienced exactly that. What began as an ordinary Tuesday morning shift turned into one of the most dramatic survival stories in human history. A story of starvation, psychological collapse, political pressure, engineering miracles, and 33 ordinary men who refused to die. This is the real story behind the Chilean mine rescue. Not just the happy ending you saw on the news, but everything that happened in the darkness before the cameras arrived. The mine and the morning it all went wrong. The San Jose copper and gold mine sits deep in the Atacama Desert in northern Chile, one of the driest, most barren places on Earth. The mine had been operating for over a century, and by 2010, it had developed a troubling reputation. Safety violations had been reported. Accidents had occurred. Workers had complained. But jobs in the Atacama are not easy to come by, and 33 men showed up for their shift on August 5, 2010, the same way they always did. At approximately 2 p.m. that afternoon, a massive section of rock, estimated at around 700,000 metric tons, collapsed inside the mine. To put that in perspective, that's roughly twice the weight of the Empire State Building crashing down through the tunnels in a matter of seconds. The collapse sealed the main tunnel completely. Dust filled the air. Communication lines went dead. 33 men were now trapped 700 meters underground, nearly half a mile below the surface, with no way out and no way to communicate with the world above. The first 17 days, the world didn't know they were alive. On the surface, the situation was chaos. Rescue teams arrived quickly, but what they found was devastating. The collapse was so severe, so total, that reaching the miners through conventional means was considered nearly impossible. Engineers assessed the damage and delivered a grim verdict. If the miners had survived the initial collapse, they were in a pocket of space deep underground with limited air, limited water, and whatever food happened to be in the emergency refuge at the time. That emergency refuge, a small, reinforced room roughly the size of a studio apartment, was designed as a temporary shelter. It held enough emergency rations to feed 10 people for 2 days. There were 33 men, and they would be down there for much longer than 2 days. Families gathered at the mine entrance. The Chilean government, under newly elected President Sebastián Piñera, made the decision to commit fully to the rescue operation, bringing in international expertise and drilling teams from across the world. Drill after drill bored into the rock, searching blindly for the refuge. Each one came back empty. For 17 days, nobody on the surface knew if anyone below was still alive. Underground. The fight to survive. What was happening underground during those 17 days was nothing short of a battle for survival. The 33 miners, led informally by shift foreman Luis Urzua, made a critical decision almost immediately. They would ration their food. The emergency supplies, a small amount of tuna, crackers, peaches, and milk, would be divided into portions so small they were almost meaningless. Every 48 hours, each man received roughly half a spoonful of tuna and a sip of milk. That was it. In the total darkness, the mine's lights ran on emergency power that quickly faded. The men began to lose track of time. The temperature hovered around 32 degrees Celsius, nearly 90 degrees Fahrenheit, with humidity close to 90%. Breathing was difficult. Moving was exhausting. Sleeping was nearly impossible. Some men began to crack psychologically. Arguments broke out. Fear turned to despair. At least one miner later described moments where he genuinely believed he would die in that rock and began composing a mental farewell to his family. And yet they held together. They organized. They assigned tasks. They maintained a semblance of routine in a place where routine made no logical sense, because routine was the only thing standing between order and complete psychological collapse. The note that changed everything. On August 22, 2010, 17 days after the collapse, one of the rescue drills broke through into the refuge area. When the drill bit was pulled back to the surface, the rescue workers noticed something attached to it. a note wrapped in red plastic and secured with tape. The message written on it was just 15 words in Spanish. Estamos bien en el refugio los 33. We are well in the refuge, the 33 of us. The reaction on the surface was immediate and overwhelming. Rescue workers wept. Families who had been camped at the mine entrance for over 2 weeks screamed and embraced. The note was photographed and broadcast across the world within hours. 33 men were alive. Now the real work began. The rescue operation, an engineering miracle. Getting a note out of a half-mile deep hole is one thing. Getting 33 living human beings out of it is another problem entirely. Engineers from Chile, the United States, Canada, and beyond converged on the Atacama. 3 separate drilling operations were launched simultaneously, each using a different technique, in a race against time and against the psychological deterioration of the men below. In the meantime, the narrow borehole that had carried the note became a lifeline. Rescue teams began sending down supply capsules, thin metal cylinders nicknamed palomas, meaning doves, through the 6-inch wide hole. Through these capsules, the miners received food, water, medicine, communication equipment, and eventually video cameras. For the first time, the world could see the men. Gaunt, exhausted, but alive. They spoke to their families through video calls. They received letters. One miner's wife gave birth to a baby girl during the ordeal and named her Esperanza, Hope. NASA was brought in specifically to advise on the psychological and physical challenges of long-term confinement, drawing on experience from astronaut isolation research. The agency sent advice on nutrition, mental health strategies, exercise routines, and even light therapy to help the miners maintain circadian rhythms in a place with no natural daylight. Meanwhile, the drilling continued. Week after week, machines ground through hundreds of meters of some of the hardest rock on the planet. The rescue, 69 days later. On October 9, 2010, 64 days after the collapse, Drill Plan B broke through to the refuge. The tunnel was wide enough. The rescue could begin. Engineers designed a custom rescue capsule called the Phoenix, named after the phoenix, the mythological bird that rises from destruction. It was 54 centimeters wide, painted in the colors of the Chilean flag, and could carry one person at a time through 700 meters of rock. On October 12th, just after midnight, the first miner began his ascent. The entire world was watching. An estimated 1 billion people tuned in across the globe. Chilean President Piñera stood at the surface. Families crowded around the rescue shaft. Cameras lit up the desert night like daylight. One by one, over the course of nearly 24 hours, all 33 miners were brought to the surface. Some wept, some fell to their knees, some raised their fists. Shift foreman Luis Urzua, who had kept order in the darkness for 69 days, came up last as a captain leaves a ship and embraced the president with tears streaming down his face. The final miner reached the surface at just after midnight on October 13, 2010. All 33 men survived. 69 days underground, 17 days in complete silence, not knowing if anyone was even searching, rations that would barely keep a person alive, heat, darkness, and fear pressing in from every direction. And yet not one of those 33 men gave up. If you want more real stories like this one, survival, mystery, history that actually happened, subscribe and hit the bell right now. And tell me in the comments, which part of this story hit you the hardest? I'll see you in the next one.